This story isn't for the faint-hearted. Proceed only if you dare. Have you ever had a best friend who felt just a little too perfect? A friend who always knew exactly what you were thinking, almost as if they weren't really human? Stitch, the 10-year-old girl, thought she had found the perfect companion in her pet Lilo. But what if I told you that Lilo was never meant to be a pet, and that Stitch was never meant to survive? Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll never look at childhood friendships the same way again. Stitch had always been a lonely child. She lived in an old Victorian house with her grandmother, who barely spoke to her. Every night she would lie awake, listening to the creaks and whispers that the house made, sounds that didn't always seem random. Then one evening, she found Lilo. It was raining heavily that night when Stitch heard a soft scratching at the back door. She hesitated, her small hands gripping the edge of the table. There it was again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. She opened the door just a crack, and there it stood, a small black-furred creature with eyes too big for its face. It shivered, staring up at her as if it had been waiting for her all along. "You're lost, aren't you?" she whispered, kneeling beside it. The creature didn't respond, but its lips curled ever so slightly, almost like a smile. And that's how Lilo entered her life. At first, Lilo was the best friend Stitch had ever had. It never barked or meowed, but it understood her in ways no one else did. She would talk to it for hours, and somehow it always answered. Not with words, but with movements, head tilts, and those strange, unblinking eyes. But then, things started happening. First, it was small. Doors left open when no one had touched them. The old grandfather clock chiming at random hours. Her grandmother muttering in her sleep, whispering names Stitch didn't recognize. And then one night, Stitch woke up to find Lilo standing at the foot of her bed, just staring. "Lilo?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The creature didn't move. It just stood there silent, its head tilting ever so slightly, like it was listening to something she couldn't hear. And then, slowly, it smiled. One evening, as Stitch played with Lilo in the living room, her grandmother suddenly spoke. Her voice was hoarse, urgent. "Where did you find that thing?" Stitch turned, surprised. "I found him outside. He was alone." Her grandmother's face paled. "You need to get rid of it, now." Lilo, sitting beside Stitch, let out a low, guttural sound. Not a growl, but something else. Something wrong. Her grandmother's hands shook as she gripped Stitch's shoulders. "That thing is not your friend. It's not even an animal." Stitch pulled away. "No, Lilo would never hurt me." Her grandmother's eyes darkened. "That's what your mother thought too, before it took her." Silence. The air grew thick, heavy. Lilo sat still, watching. And then, for the first time, it spoke. "She's mine now." That night, Stitch couldn't sleep. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. What did she mean? What happened to her mother? She tiptoed downstairs, heart pounding. The air smelled of something rotten, something old. She followed the scent, straight to the basement. She had never been allowed down there, but now something called her. The door creaked open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and something else. Memories. Photos lined the walls, old, faded pictures of her mother as a child. In each one, she was smiling, holding a small black creature, the same one Stitch now called Lilo. Her breath caught. She turned, and Lilo was there, watching, waiting, its lips curled upward, revealing teeth, too many teeth. And that's when she realized Lilo had never aged, never changed, because it wasn't a pet. It wasn't even alive. It was a curse. She ran. She didn't think. She just ran. But the house moved with her, its walls stretching, twisting. The lights flickered, the whispers grew louder. "Lilo, please, stop," she sobbed, turning back. The creature only grinned. "I've been with your family for centuries, Stitch. You can't leave me. You are me." And then, darkness, silence. The next morning, the house stood still. The storm had passed. The only sign that Stitch had ever existed was a new black-furred creature sitting at the doorstep, waiting for its next friend. So tell me, have you ever had a friend who seemed too perfect? A friend who always knew what you were thinking? Because if you do, look again. They might not be your friend. They might be waiting for you.